live from the Coachella Valley. Time for another hour of the desert scene. Art exhibitions to modernism, music festivals to live theater, big screen, little screen, and very little screen. This is the Culture Corner with Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza. Here's Bonnie and Brayan on iHub Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the Culture Corner here with Bonnie and Brayan. We're having such a good time, and honestly, I'm so excited for this pilot. Basically, this is a pilot episode for our new format, and so we have so much to talk about. And I want to introduce artist, filmmaker, Tysen Knight. Hey, are you there?
Hey, how you guys doing? How you doing, Bonnie?
Hey, Tysen. So glad to talk to you again.
Likewise.
Go ahead.
So, first of all, I wanted to check up. I know you're always running around doing all kinds of new stuff. What's your latest? What's your latest project you've been working on?
Well, actually, I just finished a wall mural last night for a business downtown Palm Springs, a new business that's opening up. But one of the biggest projects I was working on downtown is the bench pilot project. I had painted the benches last year. And it was a test pilot for last year, and they renewed it. So I had 9 artists do 10 more benches, and we finished that about 3 weeks ago. And so you'll see, if you go downtown, you'll see 9 different artists' interpretations on the benches. So it's an extension from the bench project I did last year. And it was so well received again that we're actually going to start in about 2 weeks. We're going to start 17 more benches downtown.
What? Now,
16 different artists.
Who are these other artists? Where do you find those?
Well, what we do is with the Palm Springs Public Art Commission, we put out a artist call, and we'll take in submissions from artists, and then we'll go from there and pick the best the benches and artists we think that are the best, and we narrow it down, and then we try to place them in front of the business that kind of correlates with the bench. It kind of ties the business with the bench, and try to match each artist up with the particular particular store they're going to be in front of. So we just had a submissions, and we got about 60 submissions. So we narrowed it down to 17 artists for this round. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Excellent.
I actually am on your website right now, so I actually have a really I actually really love your work on here. I just love the usage of color, and especially on a lot of these people like Judy Garland and Frida Kahlo. So my question is, now, I know sometimes we have to do work for commission or anything like that, or we're kind of brought into a project, right? That might not necessarily been something, but what made you paint these particular icons like Frida Kahlo, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Judy Garland, Andy Warhol? Why these particular people for your work? I'm kind of curious.
Well, the artists of that bunch, Basquiat, Keith Haring, Andy Warhol, they're some of my biggest inspirations. They're one of the reasons why I was so impacted by art and wanted to be an artist. So that's why they were tied into that particular project. Now, when we first started that street bench project with the city last year, they came up with the theme of icons. So we actually had a list of maybe 25 different icons, and it dwindled down to the ones that you see on the benches. So I had to pick some. The commission picked, and the Main Street Merchants, which was the part of that project, some of the stores downtown and the city, actually dwindled down to those particular icons. I think Judy Garland's daughter lived here, and I think Lucille Ball had some type of ties to Palm Springs, so that's why those two made it on the list. And Frida Kahlo was added in. Marilyn Monroe was supposed to be where Frida Kahlo is, but at the last minute, they swapped out Marilyn Monroe for Frida Kahlo. So I think, so that's kind of how that series of icons came about. That was just something that was a brainchild of the Palm Springs Art Commission, and with my input and the city's input, we were able to narrow down to those particular icons.
That's actually pretty cool that you went from Marilyn Monroe to Frida Kahlo, because honestly, even though Marilyn Monroe is kind of strangely tied into Palm Springs because we used to have this statue here, it's actually pretty refreshing to hear that that eventually it was decided to do Frida Kahlo, because she is a remarkable artist and a remarkable human, and she fits so many intersections. She's Latina, she's well, I guess you can say Latina, you could also assume woman too. I was going to say she's a woman, but I think I said that twice. And she's disability icon. So for me, it's like, for me, Palm Springs, to see those faces, I think it's important. It's really important to see different types of faces, and especially since I think we underestimate our Latino community in Palm Springs. We have a really big one, and a strong Black community as well. So to see these faces, I actually really appreciate that, because it's important to see faces like yours, and the fact that Frida Kahlo herself, you know, her story has been kind of like, I'm gonna say whitewash would be the better way to say it. But
wasn't she in a horrible car accident or bus accident or something?
Yeah, and
something to that effect.
Yeah,
and she was also remarkably a very radical communist. So it was kind of she has a very fascinating story. So to see someone who isn't traditionally like a Palm Springs icon, as they would say,
in the traditional sense, be
represented, I think that's pretty awesome. And I gotta commend that decision, honestly.
So
I appreciate that, man. I thought it was very important for diversity, and just to show, you know, different, you know, aspects of our community, and the beauty and the positivity that we all can contribute to our society. So I thought it was very important. So I appreciate that you appreciate that, for sure.
So Tysen, I want to ask you about, you know, it's we can't do a show like this without it's somewhat addressing what the heck's going on in this country right now. And art, we were talking earlier about art, theater, music, whatever, is so important, even more important, I think, when a country's in turmoil. Partly for it's an escape to a certain degree. It's something beautiful we can focus on instead of the ugliness that's going on. But it also can make a statement, a political statement. How has your art changed at all over, like, especially the last year with everything we're dealing with, the pandemic and race relations and the economy and all the horrible stuff we're dealing with?
You know, I think my art is, you know, I'll say that based on where we are as a country, the temperature of the country, I think my art has been enhanced. I think before, you know, the pandemic, and we was having a lot of, you know, racial tensions and our country was divided, my art was kind of going in that direction as far as, like, you know, I mentor troubled teens, you know, I mentor in the school system. So I always thought it was very important to show a positive African-American man doing positive things in the community, and also not just an African-American man, but actually an American that's doing something positive in the community. So I feel as though when it comes to like race relations and the division, I try to keep myself in a perspective where I can respect both sides, and I can have, you know, a variety of different friends, and just always make sure that I lend a helping hand and help whoever needs help. If you're for the left or the right or whatever your ideologies are. I try to be fair with people and just kind of have empathy for people as well, and try to understand why they come from their particular ideology and things of that nature. I think it's not really productive if I feel a different way from someone else, and we have a common bond and we're friends, that I get into this back and forth with them where it could turn into a negative, and I get alienated from some of the people that I care about, you know. And so I just think it's very important that we're able to agree to disagree. And as long as it doesn't go to a point where your ideology or what you're thinking or harms anyone, I think that we can have disagreement in verbiage. I think as far as my artwork, I think that I wake up every day and I make sure that I put as much positivity out there in the world that I possibly can. You know, some people see me as the African-American male being a positive and productive. That helps work. If that helps for a segment of people, that gives them inspiration, I'm fine with that. But my main goal is to make sure that I inspire everyone. So, I'm just blessed, and I'm just thankful that I'm able to use art in a productive way in such divisive times. And, you know, with the coronavirus as well, you know, a lot of people are out of work, and it's just a really, really trying time, 2020. I mean, so many things have happened in this year. So I think that this is a year that we're going to get through, and then, you know, we're going to try to heal this country and hopefully move forward. So I'm just excited to hopefully and that we're able to get on the other side of this thing, and just really, really depend on each other and love each other and just respect each other, regardless of background, you know, race, what have you. I think we can all find a common bond and a common ground, because really what the coronavirus has shown me is that it doesn't matter really who you are. At the end of the day, we're all American. We all were affected.
And we're all human. Yeah.
And we're all human. and we all were affected. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. I think that we just hit a tipping point where it was always things like that was always pushed under the rug, like racial relations and certain things. And we didn't deal with them. We kind of surfacely dealt with them. But I think the pandemic made us take a really hard look at what was in front of us. And I think this is just kind of like the boiling point. And I think that we'll get on the other side of this in the time being.
It's
in the near future.
It's one of those things, like you said, it's always been there. It's just that it's right now in our face.
Out in the open, yeah.
And it's better for us to have a moment of reckoning to kind of realize, okay, we have to have these conversations now. We have to.
It's not going to go away. Absolutely. We got to discuss it. Yeah.
No, and the one thing I really liked about what you said earlier was that, funny enough, it kind of plays into something me and my brother talked about yesterday, where someone kind of told my brother he needs to do more for the Latino community because we're both Latino. And I said to him, well, the fact that we're both in school and we're thriving is doing something for our community. And I think
that alone, yeah.
And the fact is that you don't have to always do something active in your community. But if you're, let's say, a person of color, if you thrive, that's already one step further than a lot of people. Now, some people won't have the opportunity to thrive as well, but I think it's important to try to be as much of an idol,
productive, and mentor, and any way you can. Yeah,
absolutely.
Someone to inspire. But I was gonna say, like you said, you work with a lot of troubled youth. Now, is the Tysen Knight Scholarship Fund that's part of your mentorship and all that for troubled youth, right?
Well, no, that's kind of part of my mentorship. It was a brainchild from my mentorship. I wanted to do more because how I came up with that to start my scholarship fund was I had a student that I was mentoring, and they had a chance to go to a art college, but they didn't have enough money to go, so they had to go to College of the Desert. So I said, man, that's a great opportunity for that kid. If he could have gotten, it was a female. If she could have gotten to that school, I mean, the sky's is the limits, And I say, you know what? I'm going to percentage of the sales I make off of my public artwork and my artwork I sell online. I'm going to put that aside, and I have a couple other people that want to put some money in, and I'm going to offer scholarships to artists in the Coachella Valley if they want to go to that next level. But I think it's very important if you have an opportunity that you're able to explore that opportunity and be the best version of yourself and really get inspired and, be able to create and be that person you want to be. And I don't think you should be hindered if you're putting something positive in the world. I don't think you should be hindered because if you make it, then someone else will make it. So you never know who's watching you, and you can inspire the next generation. So I think it's very important that I help push that forward. So that's one of my main missions.
All right. Tysen Knight is Tysen Knight, Knight. Check out his website. He's got some amazing stuff on there. Congratulations again for all your films. We'll talk about that next time. Your benches, your mentorship. You're really out there making a difference, and we need that these days. Thank you so much for being here. Continued success.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
All right.
Nice talking to you.
Have a great day. We'll be back on the Culture Corner in just a minute.
The curtain rises on local and regional arts and entertainment. From music to theater, films to fine art, it's the Culture Corner. Get connected. Call 760-544-TALK. That's 760-544-8255. Here's Bonnie and Brian on iHub Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the Culture Corner. We're going to get into some news right now. We're going to talk about The Batman. Now, The Batman is a upcoming 2021 movie, so, you're not going to see...
It's called The Batman?
Yes,
okay.
The Batman.
All right, okay.
Not just Batman or The Bat, it's The Batman. Now, the interesting thing about this movie is that at first it received a lot of, questions because of the actor in it, Robert Pattinson. Now, Robert Pattinson, he's really famous for Twilight.
Yeah.
And he's done independent work, so if you haven't seen movies like The Lighthouse, I recommend that one. But, The Lighthouse is one of those, like, independent movies that's kind of, like, really out there. But it shows that he can act. I think he's always been a good actor. It's just that Twilight was based on a book series that maybe wasn't that great. I don't want to like
So he got kind of typecast a little bit with that, I think, that role, right?
Yes, and in many ways, Batman actors, funny enough, they always get plagued with people assuming that they will think of the performance like that they know the performance. Like Michael Keaton, because he was a comedic actor, a lot of people assumed he couldn't do Batman. Christian Bale, because he was in Little Women in the 90s, Little Women. Oh, he can't do Batman. But they keep proving. It seems every time an actor does Batman,
prove them wrong. Yeah.
Right. And now the production for it was halted because of COVID-19 before. Now, the first time it was obviously because everyone was shutting down.
Yeah.
And now that we're in this reopening stage, which, whether or not you think it's too soon, I think most people will say it is too soon to be reopening stuff, especially film sets. Now, the Batman actually released a trailer a couple weeks ago, like less than a couple weeks ago, and it got a lot of love and reception from people, and people are really excited about Robert Pattinson taking up Batman. Now, Robert Pattinson has actually, according to Vanity Fair and according to a lot of Hollywood gossip sites or even news sites, actually it's more specifically movie news, Robert Pattinson got coronavirus. Warner Bros. Has said that a member of production has coronavirus, and now they have to halt again. Now, for me, I want Robert Pattinson, first of all, just get better. Please get better.
Absolutely. We sound healing prayers, yes.
And the fact is that I kind of feel for Robert Pattinson because coronavirus, when it hits you, it really does. And what I want to ask in this news segment is, what are some factors that could have led to this? Because the fact is that, for example, me and you are in this space, and we kind of have to put in great trust that me and you are going to be safe outside of that. So I wonder how film productions are going on right now, because this is in England. And I imagine, and I really do imagine, that everyone's kind of putting in blind trust that, okay, well, I assume Robert Pattinson's going to not party and stuff, or I'm going to assume no one else is going to be responsible. And it kind of makes you wonder, was he going to get coronavirus regardless if he was going to be on the film set, or is it because of the fact that there's so many people crammed into a film set and you can't put on a mask in a movie because you have to see someone's face?
If you're right, yeah. I happen to think my feeling is more the latter. I mean, when you have in a film set, even if you have, let's say, 20 people, I mean, that's a lot of individual people. Where has that person been? Who have they been hanging out with? Did they go to a big party last week? Did they wear a mask? Did they go to church? The more people you have together in a space, especially talking about a movie set, and you're in England, so somebody could have just flown in from Spain or flown in from wherever. Then I think the chances go way up in that kind of situation.
And I think it's especially unfortunate because the main actor got it. Now, a crew member, it's bad too, because that means everyone's infected. But I think in this case, a lot of people are especially concerned because COVID-19 can, you can be healthy, and sometimes because of a variety of factors, you can drop dead.
Well, who was the Broadway actor that first he lost a leg and then he died?
I think his name was Nick
yeah. And he was 30-something, I think. I don't know.
30-something,
I think
thin,
he was young
attractive. And then he just...
There's no guarantees.
No, definitely not. He was in a ventilator for months, and then when he died. And the funny thing is, people... the sad thing is that a lot of people assume that, oh, well, they haven't died and they've been on the ventilator for 3 months, they'll eventually get better.
Not necessarily.
No. And it's sometimes, if you're on a ventilator for a week, you're more likely to survive that than being on a ventilator for 3 months.
Yeah, and when you're on, I've read things from medical people. Once you're on a ventilator, your odds are not good.
And the thing is, though, that COVID-19 is a very strange virus, because when people compare it to the cold or the flu, I'm like, I never lost a leg to the flu.
It affects people in different ways. I mean, I've heard people say they had terrible headaches for 3 weeks. They have had people have different symptoms.
And for me, it's like, I wonder how he got tested positive, because if he was symptomatic, or I assume that they were doing testing, the fact is they should have done testing I think they should do testing if most every 3 days, because that is
on a film set. Yeah, absolutely.
And some people are trying to ask whether or not we can hold Warner Brothers accountable. And, I don't want to say they should hold Warner Brothers accountable, but we should kind of question whether or not it is too soon.
Yeah, and is the almighty dollar more important than people's lives? That's what it really comes down to.
That's true. And the Jurassic Park movie that's coming out, they're filming, and they haven't had anyone with COVID-19, but they're filming in Australia, so we kind of have to think, England is a hot spot too, just like the United States.
Don't be filming in hot spots, I think is some advice,
And honestly, like I personally don't believe we should be filming at all. I think people can wait for the movies, and honestly, maybe social distancing movies and found footage. We can try to be creative on that end.
Creative, yep, that's the key.
And even postpone movies for next year. But hopefully Robert Pattinson gets better. But on the next segment, we're going to talk to Krystofer Do. So stay tuned.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Live from the desert cities of Southern California, here's Brayan and Bonnie.
Hey, welcome back to The Culture Corner. It's Bonnie and Brayan.
B&B.
The B&B. Not Airbnb, but the B&B. Now, I have Krystofer Do on the line. Now, he is a local artist, and he is a really good artist. I have been an admirer of his music. He used to do this thing called Krystofer Do and Chill on Sundays at 7 p.m. through Facebook, because they were a successor to his stint at Stacy's, which would be Sundays at 7 p.m. and it would be a free event too. Now, do I have Krystofer on the line?
Yeah, I am right here.
Hi, Krystofer.
Hey, Krystofer.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Hi.
Now,
Thank you for having me.
Now, Krystofer, I was going to ask you, now let's get to the nitty gritty. Now, what are some of the difficulties you as an artist have during the pandemic, like financially, or any difficulties that you have not having your regular gig on Sundays?
It's hard for me because honestly, when I had Stacy's, they had a pretty good thing going for me. I would get paid nightly, and I get a lot of solid tips because, Palm Springs, people in Palm Springs are, very bombastic and willing to just throw money at you if you're like a decent entertainer at best. And, I was always, the tips you don't really have to, you just keep for yourself. So it's just kind of like you get paid and then you get tips, and sometimes the tips were amazing. And nowadays, every week I'm on unemployment now, and every week I get not nearly as much money, especially now that we're not getting that $600, and that added $600 a month anymore, or actually a week.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of hard, but really it's financially, I'm hanging in there. I've actually had a very good friend of mine. He's actually also my landlord, and the rent's really low because of, we're friends together, and that's definitely helped me a lot. So, but yeah, financially, it's pretty rough, but we're just hanging in there. All the musicians are, until live performance starts kicking up again.
That's the thing, is that I've always liked your attitude towards things. Like, I've always felt that you have a very positive attitude. Even when I listen to you talk about your difficulties, it still feels like you're trying to find silver linings. And that's one thing I've always admired about you, is that you try to look at the positives. Now, as an artist, I noticed that a lot of times when you're on your personal Facebook, you do put a lot of, me and you have disagreements on how to unify people, but through your art, right, how do you aim to unite people through your art?
That's a really interesting question. I guess I don't really consciously think of that. What's kind of allowed me to get a little bit more political when it comes to my art recently was the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm very passionate about the movement because of my friends, but also because of the fact that I believe that the original message in the Black Lives Matter movement has been lost, and everyone's now just talking about all lives matter, blue lives matter, and stuff like that. Well, yes, of course, but you're missing the point if you say that. People have always missed the point, and people saying all lives matter are just retaliating against Black Lives Matter when they don't really know what Black Lives Matter is really all about in the first place. It was about oppression against Black people, and it does exist. And people are ignorant if they say otherwise. And so, sorry, I don't mean to make any of your viewers mad or anything, but it's just what I believe subjectively. I'm not going to try and, convince anybody of my viewpoint, because ultimately you have the right to believe what you want. But that's kind of how I started writing a couple of songs a little bit more politically. I wrote a song recently called Fight. That was just kind of a charity song for Desert Rose Playhouse. And that was something that I had never thought I'd do, because I never really liked putting politics in songs. But I just decided to do that. And I wrote another recent song that I released as a demo called Change. And it's kind of like a sort of, I guess you could say like a more sad song about it. Kind of like, will there ever be any change? It's sort of like the polar opposite to Fight. Fight was all motivating and inspirational, whereas Change is kind of like it's polar opposite. Like, oh, okay, well, I have all this hope and stuff. Is something really going to change? So I guess I don't know. I whenever I write, I tend not to think about necessarily uniting people. I just kind of, the best artists, I believe, really truly write from what they feel and what they think, not necessarily what they believe their audiences will do. It's I don't know. It's kind of strange to to think of the process. So, but yeah, that's pretty much my answer.
Krystofer, I have a question for you about writing, and I'm always curious about this, whether it's people who write songs or novels or whatever. Do you just write at the spur of the moment? Do you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with an idea, or do you sit down and say, Friday at 10 o'clock, I'm going to sit down and write something? Or is it kind of a mix of those two?
Oh man, it's a mix of so many things. But thanks for the question. I try and write whenever inspiration hits. The process itself is really just all over the place. There's a song recently that I started writing lyrics first to, which I hardly ever do, but they just kind of flowed, and I didn't really look at it as a song at first. I looked at it as poetry, and then I kind of decided that for my album, I'm going to do a really cool thing where I recite my poem in the beginning, and then music will kick in, and then there's going to be lyrics in this really cool jam out that my band is just going to do. I want to feature my band that way instead of just having me singing all the time, which I love to do, but I like to change things up a little bit. That's kind of how I like to write. Also, I don't like doing the same thing over and over. And really, I've written songs from 3 a.m. all the way up till morning, or I've written songs straight up in the morning all the way up till the afternoon. And it really just kind of, I don't know, I guess there's no, I can't really give you a straight answer, honestly.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
So tell us about your band. Tell us about who's in your band and what kind of sound. How would you describe your music, or what kind type of music, if someone were to ask you that?
So my band is really cool. I go by Krystofer Do just on my own, and you can check that out on Facebook as well. My name is spelled really weird, but I'm sure you guys can, definitely share your audiences that. But then also, when I go out and perform with my band, we're called Krystofer Do and Friends, and my band is amazing. My bassist, who is actually also my roommate and my landlord, he's an incredible guy who I met a few years ago, and we just kind of kept getting to know each other. His name's Miguel Arballo. He is an incredible actor as well. He's an incredible artist in general. I believe that he's a true artist, which is why I love working with him, as well as my other band members. My great friend, Juan Espino, he goes by Razor J. That's his artist name. And he is the sickest guitarist I have ever heard out here. Literally, no holds barred. He is the best guitarist out here. He could literally shred anything you want and write anything he wants. He also raps, and he's very technical and very musical. And it's just this incredible, incredible experience whenever you watch Razor J. And I've worked with a couple of drummers out here. It's really hard to get a solid band going that will just stay with you, especially because if you're just a solo artist, sometimes you have to sub people, or sometimes, people just won't be available. So I've worked with a few drummers out here, there's Eric Nunez, who just recently moved, Sean Poe, who's an amazing drummer. He drums for, I believe, Avenida Music, who's a cover band. He's drummed for the Flusters before. And a guy who it's just recently who I love working with now, his name's Sean McCune. He's a younger guy. I think he's 18 or 19. And he is an incredible drummer. So, and I also work with a keyboardist. He goes by Alfonso. I'm so sorry. His last name is so hard to pronounce, but his name is Alfonso. Whenever I don't want to do keys, he's a much better keyboard player than I am. So that's pretty much. I really like working with artists. I don't really like working with people who are just doing this as a hobby. This is my career, and I whenever I work with people, I really want them to be the best of the best. So yeah.
I definitely agree with wanting to work with people at their strengths and what they're, and I like the fact that you said career as opposed to hobby, because a lot of us like to say that, we're artists. And I think, if you're an artist as a hobby, that's valid too, but there is a big difference between someone, I think a lot of times, when I see bands break up, it's because honestly, one's a hobby artist and one's a career artist. Mm-hmm. So I really like the fact that you said that. And I wanted to I wanted you to tell our audience about your first studio EP that was released August 20th, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Would you mind sharing some expectations or anything like that? What are some artists that are similar to you, or something that, if someone ballpark, sell us your album on here, because I think you're such a great musician. But for those of us who don't know, tell us about that album. Anything you want to say? Sure, of course. So I released my first EP a couple of years ago. I think it was August in 2018, and that album was kind of supposed to be a showcase of mostly my voice, but also my writing capability. I wrote a rock song called Mastermind, and that was kind of the opener to my album. It's one of my favorite songs. I still love performing it live, and it's always a killer. The audiences usually love it. And then and then on that album, it's actually mostly ballads, and I love writing ballads so much. They're so intimate, and they're just beautiful to listen to, and they can make you cry, they can make you smile, they can make you. There's so many different things that a ballad can do that they're so versatile. And that's what I like being, is I like being versatile. So I guess what you could say about my sound is, oh gosh. I'm pretty much, I like to think of myself as an R&B pop rock artist. I think that's the best way to describe me. I am delving more into electronically produced sounds, because I really think that, especially nowadays, you can do anything digitally, and I kind of like bands like Daft Punk or if you had never heard of them before, Fantagram. They're my favorite band right now, and their production value on their songs is so amazing. Every single frequency, every single drum beat, every single melody, Sarah Barthel's voice, Josh Carter's production, everything is just it's pristine to me, and that's pretty much who I want. I kind of aspire to one day I want to meet them and maybe even write a song with them. That would be my moment of saying, oh my God, I made it. It would be so cool. So, and Michael Jackson's also a huge influence on my voice and a little bit of my writing as well. But I'm definitely trying to steer away from trying to get compared too much to Michael Jackson as much of an amazing artist he was. I definitely get that comparison a lot. And so for this album I'm writing now, for a new album I'm writing, I definitely am trying to go into different
alleyways and different ways of writing, I suppose.
Okay, well, thank you, Krystofer, for joining us on this segment. We're going to have to end.
Thank
you
you
so much for talking, and hopefully we'll have you back on when things get better.
Yeah, hopefully be out there live soon. We hope. Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Here are Bonnie and Brayan.
Hey, welcome back to The Culture Corner. We're going to go ahead and get into some news again. Now, AMC Theaters. Now, AMC Theaters is a really popular brand of movie theaters, and they have some locations here in California. And those locations in San Diego County are going to be relevant in this discussion because they are planning on opening 70% of theaters for the release of the movie Tenet that actually came out literally 2 days ago.
So are they open now?
Yes.
Okay.
Because Governor Gavin Newsom in California specifically has like this plan where some counties can get off the watch list so they can reopen a little faster than others. So in San Diego County, they are now open, but at 25% capacity.
Okay.
And the details are a little weird because like I know that they got some backlash for not trying to push the mask agenda, quote unquote.
So are they requiring them now? We don't know for sure.
They are actually requiring them now because, and the reason why I brought it up is that because they had a lot of controversy in the beginning because they felt that they didn't want to push a divisive narrative with masks, that they encourage masks but they won't enforce it. But now they are enforcing it, and I think that if you're gonna be open and you're gonna go to the theater, the least you can do is wear a mask.
Exactly.
And, I get the mindset of like, would it be as much of a risk as going to the grocery store? I say going to the grocery store is already a risk. But
you're not there for 2 hours. Normally, you're not at the grocery store for 2 hours.
And you can avoid people easily.
Yeah.
And at the movie theater, the fact is, like, you can sit in a space with a couple people for 2 hours, and if someone gets COVID, there's a good chance within that 2 hours
you're going to get it because the droplets are going to fly around. Yeah.
And you never know how the ventilation is because it can be bad ventilation. And the thing about the movie Tenet is that it actually has a good reason to even try to be open. And I mean a good financial reason, not necessarily a good ethical reason, but The New Mutants, a movie that is a collaboration with Disney and Fox. Well, Fox made it and then they got bought by Disney. It actually made $7 million at the box office because it finally did a limited theatrical release. Yeah. And that includes drive-in theaters too. Wow. And drive-in theaters make way more sense now. I'm glad they're finally doing them here. I'm surprised it took them this long to figure this out. Let's do some drive-in theaters, And I think it makes a lot of sense because you're...
Absolutely.
In your car, safe.
You got a space out where you park. You're sitting there with your family. And it's a great idea.
And you can take off your mask while eating.
Yeah.
Now, in the movie theaters in China, they don't even have concessions. So I
think it's smart.
And that's really smart. I definitely agree with that. But it's like theaters are going to suffer a little bit because most movie theaters, their money comes from concessions.
A lot of money from concessions, yeah.
And, we like to complain about concession prices, but, there's kind of a reason why they're the prices that they are. And with New Mutants making $7 million, Tenet is a more highly anticipated movie, and it's a movie that has a lot of like Oscar buzz.
What's the story? Who's in it? I don't know anything about it.
Robert Pattinson's in it. And
that's right.
And the story is kind of like, I don't know how to describe the story because when you watch the trailers for it, it's more of one of those visually interesting movies.
Tenant, like a tenant that's renting an apartment?
No, not like that one. At first I was like, the Tenant. Like, are we remaking the movie with the Roman Polanski movie? But it's basically a story that follows a secret agent as he manipulates the flow of time to prevent World War III.
Okay, well that sounds interesting. Yeah.
And it stars Robert Pattinson, but John David Washington, Michael Caine, and Kenneth Branagh are in this too.
That's a good cast, yeah.
It's a really good cast. Yeah. And so for me, it gets a lot of like, I want to see it, but I want to see it from the safety of my home right now.
Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's the fact is that AMC wants to reopen everything because they are the most, of all the major chains, they are the ones that are struggling the most. They've actually said earlier this year they believe that they might even close down permanently.
Go bankrupt, yeah.
And they honestly want to be reopened. I get that. I get that you're a big theater chain and you want to be able to stay afloat. But it's also kind of like, I wish, like I think we messaged each other privately. I wish there was a way for us to have like an arts bill where we can have Congress vote for the arts and be able to send money.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. Like they bailed out banks and bailed out airlines and
the arts, because the arts, like the fact is that it's already difficult to have a career in the arts, and for a pandemic to kind of just destroy everything, it's kind of unfortunate.
And arts, we've talked about this, arts are one of the things that keep people sane during trying times like this. So it is important. I mean, it's not, is it as important as eating? No, but it is important,
No, I definitely agree. And the thing would be that I almost wish that they did a thing with Tenet where they did the same thing with Mulan. Now, Mulan came out this week too, but Mulan has a different strategy. Mm-hmm. If you have the Disney Plus app, you can get an upgrade called the Premier Access, meaning that you can buy Mulan. So you can
see it. Yeah.
You can buy Mulan for $30. Now, that's pretty steep. That's a pretty steep asking price. Because if you go to the movie theater, you are going to spend $30, but that also includes concessions.
Right.
So you buy it, and it becomes part of your streaming service permanently, from my understanding. But there's still controversy because the Premier Access will automatically charge you for the next movie on that. And so I'm kind of...
I wouldn't like that. Yeah.
I'm kind of concerned because it's like, I want to watch Mulan to stay updated and to talk about it on the show, but it's also like... Do I want to kind of...
To be forced to buy all these other movies that come out.
Yeah, and it's like $30 is an asking price,
it's kind of steep. Yeah.
Especially for a movie that isn't getting a lot of big reviews. But Tenet is getting great reviews, so I'm kind of thinking they can do something similar, not as steep, with HBO Max, where people can buy the movie and have it on their streaming service. And I hope they don't do what Disney did, which is make it to where they automatically charge you. And
that people aren't going to like that.
No, definitely not. And I personally would feel like I didn't want to get this other movie too. And
yeah, exactly.
And now Tenet, they could do it for that one, but it's one of those things where it's a difficult question. What can movie theaters do? Because if they're not going to get help from Congress or get help from like an outside source. I know a lot of movie theaters that are trying to do, Mary Pickford, for example, they're trying to sell concessions like popcorn and drinks and candy to stay afloat, or they're reopening drive-in theaters.
Or to put a drive-in in your parking lot,
And actually, I think the Mary Pickford Theater are actually doing that right now.
Is doing that, yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really intelligent because not only are you bringing in the community together, distant, of course.
Yes.
But you're also making money and you're going to stay afloat. And honestly, bringing back the drive-in theater could honestly be something that might unify some people. It might actually bring in some interest. And,
I think so. Yeah.
And they might actually, funny enough, save a lot of the ones that are already established, like the ones in 29 Palms. Or
there's some old ones that have been sitting dead for years, right?
And for me, it's going to, if we are intelligent about this, I think we can do a lot of good for the film community. But I also believe that my heart goes out to a lot of employees in a lot of movie theaters. And same with like, regular theaters.
A lot of people, yeah.
So, but for me, it's also like it kind of leaves me in a weird position because I want to be helpful, but I also don't want people to get sick.
Hello. Thank you, Brian. Yay, we did our first 2-hour Culture Corner. Thank you to Robbie and to my sister Kendall and to Tyson and to Krystofer. And this is really exciting.
I'm really happy. It's such a fun episode. I really enjoyed it.
All right, everybody stay safe out there, and we'll see you next week. But be nice to each other. Gosh, we're all in this together.
Be kind, be thoughtful, and do all the good you can for all the people you can and for as long as you can, because we have less time. We have more life, but less time.
Yeah. All right. See you next week.
See you.